Expedients to conceal identity. What is this good plan of yours, friend C.H. Sharon? Asked T.S. Sao of the speaker, who was a civilian in his service named C.H. Sharon C.H. Shun. C.H. Sharon replied, "Your two principal enemies are now firm allies, closes lips and teeth. But Liu Pei wants H. Sichuan, and if you, O minister, send a mighty host against Sun C.H. Xuan, he must ask help from his friend Liu, who, having his heart set on the west, will refuse it. Sun without this aid cannot stand, and will become so weak that Chiangtung will be yours for the taking and Qingchu will follow in a tap of the drum. The west will follow, and the whole empire is yours." "Those are my thoughts put into words," replied T.S.Sao. The expeditionary force of 30 legions set out for the south. Chang Liu of Hofei was in command of the supply department. Sun Chuan speedily heard of the move and called in his advisors. At the council, Chang Kao said, "Let us send to Lu Su to tell him to write at once to Liu Pei that he may help us. They are good friends and Liu will certainly respond favorably. Beside, since Liu Pei and Sun Chuan are now connected by marriage, there is no risk of refusal. With the support of Liu Pei, there is no danger to our country." Sun Chuan listened to this advice and sent to Lu Su bidding him to ask help from Liu Pei. Accordingly, on receipt of this command, a letter was written to Liu Pei, who, after reading it, retained the messenger at the guest house till Keung-ming could arrive from Nanchun. As soon as he arrived, Liu Pei showed him the letter. The advisor said, "It is not necessary for Chiangnan troops to move, nor need we send ours. I can prevent T.S.Sao from even daring to look in a southeasterly direction." So he wrote a reply telling Lu Su he could lay aside all anxiety and rest content, for should the northern army approach, they would be forced backward at once. The letter was given to the messenger, and then Liu Pei asked his advisor how he could hope to roll back the huge army that T.S.Sao had prepared to bring south. He replied, T.S.Sao's chief fear is H. Siliang. Now just lately he has slain Ma Tiang and his son as well, and the men of H. Siliang are grinding their teeth with rage. Now you must write and ask Ma Chao to march through the pass, and T.S.Sao will have no leisure to think of any expedition to the south. The letter was written, sent by a trusty hand and duly delivered. Now Ma Chao was in H. Siliang. One night he had a vision. In his dream he saw himself lying out on a snowy plain, and many tigers were coming up and biting him. He awoke in a fright and began to wonder what the dream portended. Failing to explain it, he told the dream to his officers. One of them ventured to say the portent was evil. This was one, Piang Ter, a junior officer. "What is your interpretation?" asked Ma Chao. "Meeting with tigers on a snowy plain is a very inauspicious subject to dream about. Assuredly our old general is in trouble at the capital." And at that moment one came in hot haste and cast himself on the earth weeping and crying, "Both your uncle and your brother are dead." It was Ma Tai, and he told the story of the evil that had fallen through Huang Ke Yui and the plotted assassination that had miscarried and become known. They too had been put to death in the marketplace, and he had escaped in disguise. Ma Chao fell to the ground and wept bitterly, grinding his teeth with rage at his enemy T.S.Sao. They lifted him to his feet and led him away to repose. Soon after arrived a messenger with a letter from Liu Pei, which read like this: "In these latter days of the hapless hands, when the rebellious and tyrannical T.S.Sao monopolizes all power, to the injury of the emperor and the wretchedness of the people, I, Liu Pei, recall that I and your father were recipients of an edict, and we swore to exterminate the recreant. Now your father has suffered death at the hands of the tyrant, and you must avenge him. As the holy books say, You cannot let the same sky cover you, nor the same sun shine upon you and your father's murderer. If you can lead your men to attack Tsao on one side, I will march my armies to prevent his retreat, and he will be taken, and all his evil crew can be exterminated. Then and thus will your father be avenged, and the hands can be restored. I might add more, but I will await your reply." Wiping his tears, Ma Xiao wrote a reply which was returned by the bearer. The Hsiliang army was then mustered. Horse and foot were assembled. Just before the day that had been fixed for the start, the governor of the district, Han Sui, sent for Ma Xiao, to whom he showed a letter from Tsao promising the marquisate of Hsiliang as a reward for sending Ma Xiao a prisoner to the capital. "Bind us both, uncle, and send us thither. You need not move a single spear," said the younger man, prostrating himself. But Han Sui raised him, saying, "Your father and I were sworn brothers. Think you I would harm you? Rather will I help if you are going to fight." Ma Xiao expressed his gratitude. The unhappy bearer of Tsao's letter was dragged forth and beheaded. This done, the two took count of their armies. Han Sui had 8 divisions under as many commanders, all to be relied upon to follow Han Sui, while the younger man had 20 legions, counting those under Piang-ter and Ma Tai. Such were the forces with which they could attack Xiangan, the capital. The commander of that city was Chung Yu. As soon as he heard what was afoot, he sent a fleet messenger to Tsao and prepared for defense. He led his force out into the open plain and arrayed it for battle. Ma Tai, with a legion and half, came on first, pouring over the countryside like a flood. Chung Yu would parley with him, but he came forward, sword in hand, to attack. However, the defender did not take the challenge but turned and fled. Ma Tai followed in pursuit. Soon the main body of the invaders arrived, and they surrounded the city, which Chung Yu set about defending. Xiangan had been the capital of the Western Han's, and so was well fortified with a solid wall and a deep moat, safe against the most terrific attacks. The new armies besieged the city for 10 days without success. Then Piang-ter proposed a plan. Said he, "Since the land about the city is barren and the water bitter, the people must have communication with the country around in order to live. Further, they have no fuel. 10 days of siege must have exhausted the supplies in the city, wherefore if we relax for a time, well, you will see. We shall capture the city without moving a finger." "Your plan seems excellent," said Ma Xiao when he heard what it was. Thereupon they sent orders to each division to retire, and Ma Xiao covered the retreat. Next day Chung Yu went up on the walls to look around and saw that the besiegers had gone. However, suspecting a ruse, he sent out spies, who returned to say the soldiers had really moved away to a distance. Wherefore he felt much relieved and allowed both soldiers and people to go out into the country to cut the much-needed firewood and bring in water. The city gates, thrown wide open, were thronged with those passing in and out. This continued for 5 days, and then they heard that Ma Xiao's army was returning. A panic ensued. The people rushed into the city, and the gates were once more barred. The captain of the West Gate was Chung Chin, brother of Chung Yu. About the 3rd watch of the night, a torch was seen moving just inside the gate, and when the captain went to see what was wrong, and was passing the gateway, a man suddenly galloped up and slashed at him with a sword. At the same time he shouted, "Here is Piang-ter." The captain of the gate was taken aback, could not defend himself, and was cut down. The gate guard was soon disposed of. The gates were shattered, and the soldiers outside came pouring in. Chung Yu escaped by the opposite gate and left the city in the hands of his enemies. He reached Chang Pass, where he fortified himself and sent news of the misfortune to Tsao. Tsao threw aside all plans for his expedition to the south, when C.H. Shangan was lost. He at once ordered that the unfortunate Cheng Yu at Chang Pass should be replaced by Tsao Hung and H. Su Huang, who had a legion under their command. They were told to hold the pass at all costs for at least 10 days, or they should pay for its loss with their heads. After 10 days the pass would be no concern of theirs, for Tsao would be there with the main army. The two captains made all haste to the pass and took over the command from Cheng Yu. They confined themselves to defense, and though Ma Xiao appeared every day and reviled and said shameful things of the 3 generations of Tsao's family, the guardians of the pass remained quiet. But Tsao Hung fretted at the daily insults and would have led the defenders out to fight had not his colleague restrained him. Ma Xiao only wishes to provoke you to come out, but remember our orders and go not. The minister has some master plan. So spake H. Su Huang. But the advice was hard to follow, for Ma Xiao's men took turns in reviling the defenders of the pass, resting neither day nor night. And H. Su Huang found it hard to curb his colleague's impatience. Thus it continued till the 9th day. Then the defenders saw that their enemies had turned all their horses loose, and were lolling about on the grass and sleeping as if quite fatigued. Thereupon Tsao Hung bade them saddle his horse, told off 3 companies, and soon this small force was dashing down to catch the besiegers unprepared. They at once fled, leaving their steeds and throwing aside their weapons. Tsao Hung could not resist pursuit and chased them. At this time H. Su Huang was higher up the road taking in cartloads of grain and forage. But when he heard what his impulsive colleague had done, he hastily got some men together and went to his rescue. He shouted to Tsao Hung to return. Suddenly a great shouting arose near him, and out dashed Ma Tai to attack. Both Tsao and H. Su turned to flee, but the drums rolled and 2 bodies of men came out from behind the hills. Then a battle began which went against them from the first. The Tsao men fell fast, but some of them thrust through the press and made for the pass. Their enemies came in close pursuit, and they had to abandon their post and flee whither they could find a way. Tsao Hung made all haste to his master to give him the evil tidings. When I gave you the limit of 10 days, why did you leave the pass on the 9th? Those men from Hsiling hurled every sort of insult at us, replied Tsao Hung, and when I thought I had them unprepared I took the opportunity, but I fell victim to their cunning. You are young and impetuous, but H. Su Huang you ought to have known. He would not listen though I told him many times. And that day I was taking in stores in another part of the pass. As soon as they told me, I felt sure there would be some misfortune, and so I hastened after him, but it was too late. Tsao was annoyed and ordered Tsao Hung to be put to death. But his brother officers begged that he might be pardoned, and as he had confessed his fault, he was allowed to go free and unpunished. Tsao advanced to Chang Pass, and Tsao Jern said it would be well to establish a strong stockade before attacking. So trees were felled, and a strong stockade built. They made 3 camps, and Tsao himself was in the center one. Soon after, Tsao and all his officers in a body rushed to attack the pass. They ran against the Hsiling men posted on 2 sides, halted and formed their array. This done, Tsao rode to the center standard whence he looked at his opponents. He saw before him a body of fine men, everyone with the bearing of a hero. And the leader, Ma Xiao, was worthy of them with his pale face and red lips, his supple hips and broad shoulders, his deep voice and fierce strength. He was wearing a silver helmet and gripped a long spear as he sat there on his charger. Piang Ter and Ma Tai supported him, and Tsao admired him in his secret heart. However, Tsao urged forward his steed and shouted to Ma Xiao, "Why are you arrayed against the hands? whom your father and grandfather served faithfully. Ma ground his teeth and cursed Tsao for a rebel, a betrayer of both prince and people, the murderer of his father and brother. My hate for you is to the death. The same sky shall not continue to cover us, for I will take you captive and satiate my appetite on your living flesh. With this he set his spear and rode over toward Tsao as if to slay him. But Yu Qin came out from behind and engaged Ma Chao in battle. These two fought some half-score bouts, and then Yu Qin had to flee. Chang Ho, however, took his place, and the two heroes exchanged a score of passes. Then Chang Ho, too, ran away. Next to come forth was Lai Tiang. Ma Chao's martial prowess was now at its height, and he made short work of Lai Tiang, who went out of the saddle at the first blow. Then Ma Chao flourished his spear at the men behind him as a signal for them to come on, which they did like a flood. They overwhelmed Tsao's men, and Ma Chao and his colleague rode forward to try to capture Tsao. They came close. Tsao heard one of his pursuers shout to another, "That is he in the red dress." So he hastily tore off his red robe and threw it away. He also heard one say, "That is Tsao with the long beard." At once Tsao took the sword that he wore at his side and sawed off some of the beard. Yet again a soldier recognized him and told Ma Chao that Tsao had now cut his beard, whereupon the order went forth to capture short beards. And then Tsao wrapped the corner of a flag about neck and jowl and fled. Panic seized upon the soldiers at Tiang Pass. Frightened, Mernter flung off his brocade robe and, terror-stricken, sawed his beard off with a sword. The fame of Ma Chao rose even to the sky. Tsao had got clear of the battle and was getting calmer. Then again the sound of hoofs fell upon his ears, and on looking round he perceived Ma Chao quite close. He and those near were panic-stricken, and all scattered for their lives, careless of the fate of their captain. Tsao, do not flee," cried Ma, coming nearer. The whip dropped from Tsao's nerveless hand as he saw his enemy coming closer and closer. But just as Ma had leveled his spear for a thrust, Tsao slipped behind a tree, changed the direction of his flight and so escaped, while Ma struck the tree. He quickly pulled out his spear, but the delay gave the fugitive an advantage, although it did not quite free him from pursuit, for Ma Chao was soon again galloping on his track. As they drew near the slope of some hills, a bold captain suddenly appeared, who cried, "Do not hurt my lord." This was Tsao Hung, and he went toward Ma Chao, whirling his sword. Ma Chao was stopped, and this saved Tsao's life. Tsao Hung and Ma Chao fought 100 bouts till both began to grow weary and become uncertain of their strokes. And when, shortly after, Xiaohu Yuan appeared with a half-score of horse, Ma Chao found it prudent to retire. Then Tsao was escorted to his camp. Although he had lost Tsao Jern, yet the camps were still unharmed, and the losses had not been great. As he sat in his tent, Tsao said, "Had I not spared Tsao Hung, I should have fallen at the hands of Ma Chao today." So he called in his rescuer and rewarded him well. And they got together the scattered men and strengthened the camp, deepening the moat and raising the rampart. Ma Chao came daily and challenged anyone to combat and abused them all shamefully. But by the order of the general, These insults were treated with silent contempt. "Our enemies use long spears," said the officers. "We will meet them with bows and crossbows." "They may have long spears," replied Tsao, "but whether I give battle or not depends on my decision. How can they thrust at us if we do not go out? All you have to do is to take no notice of them, and they will speedily retire." The officers wondered. They said one to another, "The minister came out on this expedition of his own will and was foremost in the fight. Why does he accept defeat so easily?" After some days the spies reported that Ma Xiao had been reinforced by the Xiang, the tribesmen beyond the frontier. Tsao took the news gleefully. His officers asked him why the news pleased him, and Tsao replied, "Wait till I have defeated them and I will explain." 3 days later there was a report of further reinforcements, and Tsao not only smiled, but gave a banquet. His officers ridiculed him in secret. Then said Tsao, "You gentlemen laugh because I cannot destroy Ma Xiao. Well then, can any one of you propose a plan?" Then rose Su Huang and said, "O minister, you have a large force here and the enemy are strongly posted beyond the pass. This means that on the west side of the river they are unprepared. If you can get an army secretly across the river and block the ferry, you will cut off their retreat. And if you can smite them on the north side of the river, they can get no reinforcements and must fail." "What you propose is just what I think," said Tsao. So Su Huang was placed over 4 companies, and with Chu Ling marched to the west of the river and hid in the gullies. They were to wait till Tsao crossed the river to the north, so that both could strike together. Then Tsao ordered Tsao Hung to prepare boats and rafts at the ferry. Tsao Jern was left in command of the camps. Tsao himself crossed the river Wai, and when Ma Xiao heard of the new military movements he said, "I understand. The pass is left, rafts are being prepared. That means that he is going to cross to the north side and cut off my retreat. I must coast along the river and keep him off. If I can do that, his food will run short within 20 days, and that will cause a mutiny. I will travel along the south bank and attack." Han Sui did not approve this plan. He quoted the military maxim to strike when troops were half over the river. "Attack from the south bank when his army is in the act of crossing, and his men will be drowned in the river," said he. "Uncle, your words are good," replied Ma Xiao, and the spies went forth to find out the time of crossing the river. When Tsao preparations were complete, and all was ready, he sent 3 parties of soldiers over the river first. They reached the ferry at the first sign of dawn, and the veterans were sent over first and lay out a camp. Tsao and his guard took up station on the south bank to watch the crossing. Very soon the sentinels reported the approach of a general dressed all in white, whom everyone knew must be Ma Xiao. This terrified them, and they made a rush to get into the boats. The river bank became a scene of shouting men struggling who could first embark. Tsao sat watching and never stirred. He only issued orders to stop the confusion. Meanwhile, the yelling of the men and the neighing of the horses of the approaching army came nearer and nearer. Suddenly, a captain jumped out of one of the boats and shouted to Tsao, "The rebels are close. Get into a boat, O minister." "The rebels are near, why not?" replied Tsao simply to the speaker, who was Chu, and he turned round to look at them. As a fact, Ma Xiao was very close, not 100 paces away, and Chu laid hold of Tsao and dragged him down the bank. The boat had already pushed off and was 10 feet from the bank, but Chu took Tsao on his back and leaped on board. The boat was small and in danger of being overturned, wherefore Chu drew his sword and chopped away at the hands clinging to the side, so that the men fell back into the water. The boat went downstream, Chu standing in the prow poling as hard as he could. His master crouched out of sight at his feet. When Ma Chao saw the boat in midstream drifting down with the current, he took his bow and arrows and began to shoot. He also ordered his brave captains to go along the river and shoot, so that a shower of arrows fell about the boat. Chu, fearing Tsao would be wounded, protected him with a saddle which he held over him with his left hand, for Ma Chao's shooting was not in vain. Many of the men working the boat were wounded. Some had fallen overboard, while more lay in the bottom of the boat. The boat itself got out of control and was whirled hither and thither by the current. Chu straddled over the tiller and tried thus to guide the boat while he poled with one hand, and with the other held the protecting saddle over Tsao head. Then the magistrate of Weinan, Ting Pa, who from a hilltop saw that Tsao was very closely pressed, nay, even in danger of his life, drove out from his camp all the cattle and horses there, so that they scattered over the hillside. This was too much for the born herdsmen of the plains. At sight of the beasts, they left the river and ran off to secure them, nor had they any inclination to pursue their enemy. And so Tsao escaped. As soon as they reached the northern shore, the boat was scuttled. The rumor had spread that Tsao was on the river and in danger, so all his officers came to his aid. But he was now safe on shore. Chu's double armor was stuck full of arrows. His officers escorted Tsao to the camp, where they made their obeisance, and expressed the hope that he had not suffered seriously. "The rebels very nearly caught me today," said he, smiling. "They would have got across the river had they not been enticed away by the freeing of the cattle and horses," said Chu. "Who was it that drew them off?" said Tsao. Someone who knew told him. Before long the magistrate Ting came in to pay his respects, and Tsao thanked him. "I should have been a prisoner but for your happy thought," said he, "and the magistrate received a rank in the army." "Though they have gone, yet they will assuredly return tomorrow," said Ting Pa. "You must prepare to repel them." "My preparations are all made," was the reply. Tsao ordered his captains to spread themselves along the riverbank and throw up mounds as shelters for camps. If they saw the enemy approaching, the soldiers were to be withdrawn from behind the mounds, leaving the ensigns all flying, so as to give the impression that each camp contained a garrison. Along the river, they were to dig ditches and put up sheds, thus to entice the enemy there, and their men would stumble into the pits and fall easy victims. Ma Chao returned to Han Sui and told him how he had nearly captured Tsao, but a certain bold captain had taken Tsao on his back and leaped with him into a boat. Han Sui replied, "I have heard that Tsao had a bodyguard of the bravest and strongest soldiers under the command of Tyne Y and Chu. They are called the Tiger Guards. Now, as Tyne Y is dead, the man you saw must have been Chu. He is both brave and powerful and goes by the name of Tigerlust. You will do well to avoid him." "I know his name too," said Ma. Tsao now means to attack our rear," continued Han Sui. "Let us attack first before he can establish camps and stockades. If once he can do that, it will be difficult to dislodge him. My idea is that we should hold the north bank and prevent him from crossing. Worthy nephew, keep guard here while I go along the bank of the river and fight Tsao. If you will take Piang Ter as your van leader, I am content," said Ma Chao. So Han Sui and Piang Ter, with 5 legions, went away down to the river, while Tsao again warned his captains to entice the enemy. Piang Ter was in advance with a goodly squadron of ironclad horsemen, and they burst along at full speed. Then there arose a confused shouting as they all went plunging into the ditches prepared for them. Piang-Ter soon leaped out, gained the level ground, and laid about him with all his might. He slew many men and presently got out of the thick of the fight. But Han Sui had also been involved, and Piang went afoot to try to aid him. On the way he met Tsao Yung, whom he cut down. Then mounting the dead man's steed, he rode forward fiercely, slaying as he passed. He reached his leader, whom he led away southeast. The men of Tsao pursued him, but Ma Chao came with reinforcements and drove them off. He rescued a great number, and they continued fighting till evening, when they withdrew and mustered their men. Some officers were missing, and a couple of 100 men had been killed when they fell into the pits. Ma Chao and Han Sui discussed what should next be done. If we give the enemy time, he will make himself strong on the north bank. I think we can do no better than to raid his camp tonight. We must have a force and supports for it, said Han Sui. So it was decided that Ma Chao should lead the striking force with Piang-Ter and Ma Tai as supports. They would start at nightfall. Now Tsao's men were on the north bank of the Y, and he gave his captains orders, saying, "The rebels will try to surprise us, as they are deceived by my not having set up stockades. You will place your men in ambush." At nightfall Ma Chao sent out a small scouting party, which, seeing nothing, penetrated deep into the enemy's lines. Presently the signal was given. Out leapt the hidden men, and in a few moments the whole scouting party were killed. And close at hand came the main army. Wait for the foe, all undismayed, place your men in ambuscade. Captains striving to outvie are not beaten easily. Who got the advantage will presently be told.